What's up, everybody? I hope you're having an amazing day so far. I'm your host Phil, and today's video, I'm going to talk about ReAmp boxes. I'm going to talk about what ReAmp solutions I used beforehand, what I'm using now, why I did the change, all of that. But first, let's roll that intro clip. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in today's video. Highly appreciate it. In today's video, I want to talk about ReAmp boxes. Now, I made a few videos around ReAmp boxes already, and if you're familiar with my channel, you know that I do a lot of capturing stuff on the channel. So I'm talking about NAM, I'm talking about ToneX, STL, Tracer, all of that stuff. In order to do these kind of captures, the ReAmp setup is essential for this. And I have used a lot of resources, a lot of research, I would say, you know, like privately browsing YouTube videos, talking to people, that stuff, in order to get to the best ReAmping setup. Yeah, that was quite a journey, but I think I'm now there. And in this video series, so I'm gonna make like 2 or 3 videos, I want to showcase specific parts of the ReAmping chain and talk about why I have made the choices which I have specifically made. And in today's video, it's all about the ReAmp box itself. The job of the ReAmp box, oversimplified, is to take the signal coming out of your audio interface and presenting that to the gear which you want to reamp, as if you would be plugging your guitar straight into that respective gear. Now, there's a lot of different misconceptions, a lot of different things where people are asking the question, is actually buying a ReAmp box or using a dedicated ReAmp box necessary? I want to kind of dive into that topic. I did that before in a video where I was kind of showing how a Boss pedal works as a ReAmp box, how this line isolator worked as a ReAmp box, and so on and so forth. And I want to kind of give some talking points to that because I have gained substantial knowledge in that field during the last year or something, which I'm doing over here, and I just want to kind of share that with you guys out there. In order to understand the assignment of the ReAmp box a little bit better, we have to talk about input and output impedance. You might be familiar with the golden rule of signal chains, that in case you have like a vintage fuzz, that you want to place that at the very first spot in your signal chain. The reason for that is the low input impedance of said fuzz. Now, what does that mean? Low input impedance basically means that the device, whatever it is more susceptible to influences coming from circuits and devices which are before that device. Now, that's exactly what you want by rolling, you know, that volume pot of your guitar. You are basically extending the fuzz phase circuit with the circuit of the guitar, and there is like a nice coupling effect happening. In my particular case over here, so when I'm going out of my audio interface into my stuff, usually my audio interface has a very low output impedance, and the stuff which I'm going into, meaning boost pedals, tube amplifiers, other devices, delay pedals, digital pedals, chorus pedals, and so on and so forth, they will have high input impedances. So what does that mean for us? That means that the original assignment of the ReAmp box to replicate the guitar, like using a fuzz face or something, is not needed. The only thing I really need the ReAmp box for is the ground loop switch. Or the ground lift switch, better saying. So that means that the ground lift of the ReAmp box is the main feature which I'm using. Having the high output impedance is not necessary for me. In theory, you could easily run your audio interface signal straight into your reamping chain, and you would be good to go in regards of, you know, like fidelity of the sound. The only thing which you will perhaps encounter is ground loop hum, and this is then something which you need the ReAmp box for. So now that we have talked about impedance matching, the implications of such, and that we actually do not need that for my particular reamping setup, but we rather need something which kind of cuts through the ground loop, this also, by extension, explains why using a Boss SD1 pedal as a ReAmp box, which is something which is regularly, you know, like suggested by people, in my opinion, is the worst idea you can have. The reason for that is you're not cutting any ground loops with this thing over here, so you're not fulfilling the core functionality which I'm using the ReAmp box for. And to be honest, the buffer in this thing is absolutely not linear. This has like a super weird curve where the low end is cut off, the highs are cranked in a very terrible way. I rather have no ReAmp box at all and just live with the ground loop hub than using the Boss SD1, because that's actually making things worse, in my opinion at least. So now this bears the question, what am I actually using as a ReAmp box and why am I using it? I am using currently as the ReAmp box, and I think I found my, lifelong ReAmp box with this, the Lehle P-Split III. Now the Lehle P-Split III is actually more of a line isolator, or more of a guitar signal isolator than anything else, but it's being regularly kind of abused as a ReAmp box for some of its core functionalities or core features, which I find very appealing and very useful in my case. Looking at the Lehle P-Split, there are three key elements which make this P-Split III from Lehle the best ReAmp box I could personally ask for. The first one is quite obvious. It's not a separator between these three. All of these three have that, but this is the basic ground lift functionality. This device separates the output from the input through a transformer, so we got that isolation going on, meaning that I can easily cut through those ground loops, which is very comfy, very handy when using this ReAmp setup, because as said before, I'm getting ground loops between the ground setup of the PC versus the ground setup of my amplifiers over here. So, but as I said before, all of these three offer this ground loop option. The two other reasons are why I prefer the Lehle P-Split III over the other options, because it kind of outweighs each of one of them in different disciplines, so to speak. One of those disciplines is winding ratio. Winding ratio is basically the number of windings on the primary versus the secondary side. They are in a specific ratio to each other. A one-to-one winding, for example, would mean there are exactly as much windings on the secondary side like on the primary side, primary being input side, secondary being output side. And this over here has, in fact, a one-to-one winding ratio. So signal-wise and signal strength, what comes in goes also out. This is a nice, easy set and forget thing. So, I mean, basically, there's nothing to set. It is a one-to-one winding ratio over here. While on the Palmer DACAPPO, we got a 3-to-1 winding ratio. What does that mean? What does that imply? That means that the signal, which is on the outside, so the output side, meaning on the secondary side, has a ratio of 1 against the winding ratio on the input side, which is 3. That means when we send something into the Palmer DACAPPO, it will come out as a weaker signal, and by the ratio 3-to-1. What that means in dB numbers is that we have to boost our signal going into the Palmer DACAPPO by 4.77 dB. At least that's what I calculated mathematically, and that's also what pretty much works very well on this. Now, if you are doing normal reamping setups, this is no issue at all. You can simply go in Reaper, set up the output volume to match the gain setting which you like, in that case 4 to 4.77 dB according to taste, and then you would be good to go. However, the NAM trainer file peaks at around minus 0.3 dBFS. dBFS meaning dB full scale, meaning I only have a headroom left of 0.3 dB until I reach the clipping point of my audio interface, or in fact any audio interface, because that's basically the threshold. The thing is that if I now would go ahead and boost that signal of, at the respective 4.77 dB, which I need in order to kind of replicate a one-to-one relationship between output and input on the Palmer DACAPPO, I will clip off certain spikes of the NAM trainer file. This, in theory, did not lead to any sort of decrease of the ESR, to be honest. There's no fidelity loss or whatsoever in my captures, which I used that before. However, I'm an OCD type of person, and I would like to have that all working out straight out of the box and very upfront and 100%, accurate. So for that, I decided to go with the Lehle P-Split, which is amazing. Now, line isolators usually also have a one-to-one winding ratio, so why not just simply use this over here? A lot of you people out there might already have a line isolator, or, like your bandmate has one and you can borrow that out. In theory, there's nothing to say against that. However, this particular line isolator and a lot of the others out there do not have that much headroom. This over here has like 6 dBu headroom. I think that equates to something around 1.5 volts. While this over here has the headroom of 20 dBu, which equates to 7.2 volts. My audio interface, the Audience ID44, which can pack a punch and push out a bit, can push out a signal which is 18 dBu strong. So that means that my audio interface will never be able to distort this ReAmping box over here, but very well and easily so, the PLI05. When it comes to normal guitar playing, just simply pushing in my guitar into the interface and pushing that out with no gain applied, you will hear in a later segment that the PLI05 will work very well as well. So for normal reamping purposes, where you do not want to set up excessive gain out of your audio interface, this can work. However, the NAMM trainer file is built in such a way that you want to have like all of these different dynamic ranges. So you're going to have everything from super loud to super quiet. And the super loud portion of the training signal will distort this over here and lead to very inferior captures. So therefore, the Lehle P-Split III is my weapon of choice when it comes to all things reamping. And that's exactly what we're going to hear in the next segment, where we're going to compare the ReAmp boxes against each other. All right, let's now get into the more practical thing over here, checking out different ReAmp setups over here. I got the PLI05 and the Lehle P-Split. I can change between them via the switch over here, playing my guitar here with a Seymour Duncan SH5 into my interface. That then goes through the ReAmp box, whatever that is, which I switch into the Lichtlam Audio King in Yellow, boosting my EVH 5150. That then goes to the Saint Rock React IR load box, which is then there, and that goes straight back into the interface with an impulse response. Really sounds incredible. You will hear in a minute. I'm gonna start with the PLI05, just play a little bit, then move over, nodding my head, and while I'm pressing down, and that means that I'm switching between PLI05 and Lehle P-Split III. Let's get rockin'. Now, you might have heard for yourself that there is basically no difference between the two of them. So the PLI05 is doing a really good job, as well as the Lehle P-Split over here. Now, you would be right in thinking that they sound fairly similar, if not even identical. The reason for that is me playing through the interface with the gain settings which I got currently on. So gain at 0, no output gain applied. I'm still perhaps pretty much within the realm of what this device is capable of handling volume-wise. Maybe some small peaks might get a little bit rounded off, when I really hit very tight, but the normal amount of my playing will just be passed through perfectly fine. And with the one-to-one winding, that works then pretty well. Now, the thing is, when I would use the NAMM trainer file, that's then where peaks would get over here distorted because my audio interface is putting them out at a too high volume. And that's then where things get a little bit wild and inconsistent over here. But nonetheless, if you have this and you just want to do regular reamping and you are well within the realm of your interface, handling all of that, and this over here handling all of that, you could get easily away with reamping through a line isolator like the Palmer PLI05. However, I'm still pretty glad that I got the Lehle P-Split. Now, let's move over to the next comparison. We're now going to repeat that test, but now instead of the Palmer PLI05 versus the Lehle P-Split, we're going to check out the Palmer DACAPPO against the Lehle P-Split. And you will then find that there will be a gain reduction whenever I'm going to the Palmer DACAPPO. But we're now going to first start off on the Lehle P-Split, and again, when I'm nodding my head strongly, I'm switching basically between the ReAmp boxes. So, yeah, let's try out. Okay, first thing, Lehle P-Split III. Now, it might not be that apparent at first glance, but there is definitely a difference over here. I'm just going to try to make that a little bit more apparent. I'm going to turn off the Lehle Audio King in yellow. So this is what we got with the Lehle P-Split. Now you can hear that the Palmer DACAPPO does not have the same amount of gain like the Lehle P-Split. However, if I go over to my other scene, then you can see over here that, hang on, where is it? ReAmp in, no, there we go, guitar ReAmp, that I'm now sending both signals out. So analog 3 is going to the P-Split that stays at 0, and analog 4 is going to the Palmer DACAPPO. I'm now just going to bump this up by 4 dB, so somewhere around 4 to 477 dB. 477 is the mathematical right thing to do, but I think there's a few tolerances in there, so, you know, boosting by 4 dB is getting me fairly close. Okay, let's try the same test again. I'm gonna start with the Lehle P-Split once again. So you can hear that you also can get very close if you boost the Palmer DACAPPO a little bit. The only issue which I have then with that is that when I'm doing the NAMM training, then I'm using the trainer file, which already is very close to clipping, so I do not have the capability of really boosting that up to the respective amount without cutting off the small flanks. To be honest, no issue whatsoever in the last 1.5 years, but I'm an OCD type of person. I want to have everything maximized out to the best of my capabilities, so I just went with the P-Split Lehle because I anyways wanted to just try out a few other things. So this bears the ultimate question: do you need any of these over here? In my opinion, yes, you need at least one of them. Which one of them you choose depends on what are you willing to spend, what do you already have at hand, what do you actually want to achieve. If you want to achieve stuff with, you know, old school fuzzes, old school wah pedals and stuff like that, then the best bet is to go with a regular ReAmp box which offers some sort of high output impedance. If you just have, something laying around, which is a line isolator already, and you just want to get started into doing some reamping stuff, don't be afraid. Go grab this, just try it out, see if it works for you. Like a lot of bands do have line isolators flying around just because we use them regularly in situations where you got ground loops and you want to kind of get rid of them very quickly live. However, in my opinion, if you are serious about doing NAM training and you have the respective audio interface with output volumes which might exceed the limits of such a line isolator, and you still want to have all of the bells and whistles which you have and kind of, have a set and forget setup, then I think the Lehle P-Split III is an absolutely incredible bang for the buck. So this over here is my top recommendation for anybody serious about reamping and doing stuff with training NAM captures. This is the ReAmp box which you want to get. And with that out of the way, let's wrap this up. Hope you liked the video, hope you enjoyed it, hope you learned something out of it. If you did so, I would highly appreciate you guys subscribing, liking, and commenting under the video. Let me know what reamping situation you are currently using. Let's engage a little bit. Do you agree with my stance on reamping in general? Is there anything to add? Let me know down below in the comments. And with that, thank you so much. See you in the next video. Until then, keep it metal.